how many sharpening setups you got? 'Cause I see you sent pictures of the other one. That you have one in your shop and one somewhere else.
This is my shop here. Yeah, this is my scissor sharpening area. I only do scissors here. We got another area where we do clipper blades and stuff, but this is my scissor area. All righty. I'm gonna give the phone here to Tanya. Anybody make that? Okay. You guys see me okay here? All right.
Yes, sir.
I don't know how to make it bigger.
All right. Okay, everyone, welcome. October 31st. Dennis here from Sharp Talk Live. We're glad you're here. Sharp Talk Live is about us together sharing our knowledge, our tips, our tricks, and our experiences to make us all stronger together. So today, I'm going to talk about two things that we see a lot in the industry, and you see it a lot of times. One of them is maybe like a badly beveled edge shear that should be a convex edge, and another thing is that I see is called banana tips, needle tips, where the curvature of the edge is has been changed a lot due to both of them due to bad sharpening. So we'll get started here, and if you guys have any questions, kind of holler out. I'll answer them the best I can for you, and we'll get started. So
somebody just entered, so I have to go.
Okay, I'm gonna set this right here. So we're gonna start with this butter cut here. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Tanya will be right back in a second. I've damaged this shear here. This is a butter cut thinner. Convex or maybe just a micro bevel edge, but nonetheless, a convex edge that should be or a bevel. It's a bevel edge that should be convex. And I'm going to set this down right here so we can maybe get a better look at it right here. Okay. Around here. All right. So you guys can see how we've got that big fat bevel on there. Okay. Give that back to Tanya. Big bevel on. A 10-degree bevel. And this is common what we see. We see multiple angles. I don't know if you guys can see that. A step here. So this edge should be a convex edge, or even at the very least, just a micro bevel, which a micro bevel and a convex, a true micro bevel and a convex, very little different. That bevel is going to be so minute that it's going to be almost like a convex edge. But this one, really big fat. All right, pull that apart. First thing we have to do is determine our ending angle. Okay, that's always important, that we want to determine our ending angle. So on this pet grooming shear, my ending angle on this one is going to be about 40 degrees. Okay, a little bit harder steel. This blade is a little bit nicer shear. I'm going to end up with about a 40-degree angle. So what I can do is I can set my clamp for 50. I got my clamp set there at 50. And a common thing that I see with, of course, we're going to check the set, do all that. We're going to make sure that the shear has not been sharpened too much down into the hollow grind to make it not worth sharpening. But this one, we're just worried mainly on this instance about fixing that badly beveled edge and make it into a convex. You guys see what I got there. All right. So a common thing that I see with a lot of sharpeners is that they won't get aggressive enough on the shear with paper. I will start out with a 320 grit. This is my, and normally I'll run this dust collector here. This is a Fordham dust collector. The filter right there. Normally I'll run that one. And I've got one up here that I'll run, but because of the noise, I'm gonna have to eat the dust and risk it. But I think I'll be okay. You guys be praying for me in this one, okay? So I've got it set at 50 degrees. My finishing angle is 40. All right. If you start out with a 500, it might take you a while. This is a 320 grit, and I may even, in cases, start out with a 220 grit. For initial shaping, I'm always going to start out with a hook and loop because I'm not too worried about the final shape. I'm not too worried about the final edge. I want to keep with hook and loop. You're able to get a little bit of cushion, and you're able to let the heat that's going to build up dissipate down into the. You're going to let the heat be able to dissipate down into the Velcro. And I may even, and I'll show you guys in a minute. I may even at times go to a belt sander. And that's going to be like a 220 or a 320 grit silicone carbide. I always use the silicone carbide paper. It works really well. I've had good luck with it. But I may even go to a 220, and I'll show you guys how I'm going to do that as well whenever I get started. So to show you guys what I'm going to do, you guys can see my edge there. I'm going to go ahead and paint this with a marker. So let me set that right there. Tanya's my camera lady today. Eric got disconnected. He's waiting to get back on.
I just let him in.
Oh. Are you back, Eric? Give me a big thumbs up.
Can't get rid of me that easy.
He's back. I tried to disconnect you on purpose, but oh
I
well.
know, and I'm drinking out of the swag mug here too tonight too.
I know it. Me too. You guys at the shows, come find me. We have these mugs. We got some other merchandise coming, stickers, and some hats and stuff coming. So find me at the shows. We'll get you a mug. All right. So you guys can see what I got here.
Okay, I just lost the.
You guys can hear me now?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
You guys see what I got there? I just marked that all up really well. You're going to be able to see with my initial grind of 50 degrees, this is going to be a final of 40 degrees. But with my initial grind and making my shape, what I want to do is just get the shape. I don't want to build a big burr right now. I don't actually even want a burr right now. I just want to get close to that edge. Keeping in mind that this was about a 10 or 15 degree angle. We see that quite often on there. Okay. All right. So that's my initial angle. I usually freehand, so I'll do it this way right here. This is made on my plant. This is made to grow horizontal like this. There's my 50 degree angle right there. Just going to do it this way over here on this 320 grit. And you can see what we've got here. There's the black back here. Here's my new edge, my new angle right here. And you can see that I'm staying away from the edge. I don't want to create a burr yet. So what I'm going to do is convex this back and sneak up on that edge is what I call it. Now, this is I know you guys see what it doesn't matter what machine you're using or what clamp system you're using. It's all going to be very relevant to what you're using. It's just my own take of what I've done. So you can see what I've done here. Now, I've got my initial convex shape, but right up there on that edge, you guys can see it, that black. There's my edge still, my old edge. So I have, in all this metal removal of this 320, I have not created a big burr. Creating a big burr reduces your edge life. So now I'm going to move over. That was 320. I'm going to move over to my 500. And that's how you work it down really quick and you get rid of scratch removal. So at my 500, I'm going to work it down a little bit here the same way. And you guys can see that I'm working all the way back to my spine. If I only work just the little edge up here, I'll create a bull nose. Well, there's my 500. And I can see I'm getting close to my edge. So now I'm going to sneak up on my edge a little bit. I'm going to change it from a 50 down to a 45. And I'm going to get closer to my edge. I can do all this in just a few minutes. Here's my 45. This is an 8-inch disc. This is an 8-inch disc, by the way. That's why it looks so much bigger. And you can see I've still got my old edge there. Right up there. You guys can see that, hopefully. And I can see that that edge is really bad. Okay. So in this case, because my edge was so bad and my 320 is not cutting it, I can get more aggressive. I can go with a 220 grit. And this is what happens a lot of times. You will be working to get rid of the damage and you're using too fine of a paper. And it's going to take a long time and it's going to build up heat. So let me show you what I got here. We're actually going to walk over to our back around the room. You guys are seeing some of my shop. All right. So belt sander. Okay, this is one way to speed it up. This is actually 400 grit, which is going to be about a 25 micron, somewhere along in there. I'm going to keep it flat. You can see how in just a couple seconds with that belt sander, I don't have a burr yet, but I'm right at the edge and I've gotten rid of that ugly bevel. You could do the same thing on a flat hone just by going to a rougher grit. I see that a lot of times folks are using too fine of a grit and it just takes too long. So there's my initial edge, my initial shape. So we'll go back in here.
I need to go check the computer.
What's that?
I need to go check the.
Okay. All right. So now, if you guys have any questions, let me know. So now I can go back to my 500, and this was, or my 320. This was a worn 320, and that belt in there that I was using was a brand new 400. So that's why it was able to get that initial shape really fast. And hopefully you guys can see what I got there. You can see how there's just a slight edge left there. Okay, so we'll go back to our 500 because we were 400 on the other. Go back to 500. Give our scratches. There's our scratches with our 500. We've got our initial shape. Got a little bit of an area right here where the previous sharpener has left a step there. So I'm going to work on that area right back there. You guys can see that little step right there. And it's just about out. We don't have an edge yet. Gonna move it closer to my 40. We'll move it closer to my 40 now, right here. And whatever clamp you use is fine. 1000 grit. And now I'm gonna look for my burr to come up. You can see, let me wipe this off, dust off. You can see I'm getting a little bit of a burr to come up in this area right here. Maybe Tanya can get it as I'm sharpening. See the burr in the middle? Tanya says yes, we can see it. So I'm gonna keep my hand low as I work and chase this burr to the back here. And then finish it out to the tip, because the tip is the most vulnerable area. It's where you can worry about tipping the shear, which we're going to talk about next, but you can also worry about burning the tip. You can see the burr growing to the back. Growing to the front. Almost there at the front. Looks like we've got a burr everywhere. All the way to the front. A little bit, it just barely at the back here. Get it just a little bit more pronounced so you guys can see it better. Yep. There it just came in. It just came in. You guys can see the burr. Let me move over here and light, Tony. See the burr there? All the way through. Okay, you guys can see what I've got here. I've got my nice convex all the way through. That was 1000 grit. That's what that was. I went from a brand new 400 to a 500, and this is on PSA. You can use hook and loop as well. I went to my 1000 on my PSA. Now I'm gonna finish it off my 1200 on my PSA. Right here, see what I got. And I'll actually use my arm now. Okay. I have a very small burr. I can see that. And I'm sharpening all the way from the edge, all the way to the spine to get that full convex. If I wanted a flatter convex, I would work the face of it a little bit more. Sometimes the convex is just the shape of the manufacturer. So basically follow what's there. Okay, so there's my 1200. I have my burr. You guys can see what I have here now. I've gotten rid of that ugly bevel that was on there. You can see my burr rolling back there. Okay. Of course, I got my ride line I got to deal with. Find my diamond spray.
You mean go get it?
No. Here it is. Back here, hiding from. Okay. Whatever polishing you use. I use 3-micron diamond spray. You guys saw my steps here that I've used. I'm going to show you how the results I have free. And then this is not about selling any kind of polish. This is just about technique. I also use my buffer. I've got some new pads up there I'm going to try. I'm always trying something new. We sharpeners, we definitely always try something new, faster, better, more efficient. All right. I'm still at my 45. Here's my 45. Or my 40. I'm sorry. This is my 40-degree angle. Two ways of working a convex. One is to work the edge. Right here's my edge. That's what I call the edge. One is to work the edge and work back a degree or 3 and blend that in. Work back a degree or 3, then blend that in. And that's segment. That's what I call, in our training, that's what I call segment sharpening. You're working an angle, blend that in, move down to a different angle, blend that in. It's called segmenting. Pretty easy to do. It's a little bit more controlled because you're basically only doing 2 things. You're working in and out like this, and you're raising your hand to let the tip go down, lowering your hand so the disc comes back here. That's called segmenting. The other way of doing it is to do your convexing motion, that adds 3 things, like jumping up and down, patting your belly, and rubbing your head. That's 3 things. That's 3 things. Usually it's easier for me to do 2, but but there are 2 ways of doing it there. And I'm going to do it the segmenting way, and you guys will see what results I have. So here's my edge, very light on my edge. This is using only a flat hone. I like to keep things simple. Yes, I use my buffer. Yes, I'm getting ready to hook up these discs here and these discs, mainly because I have the room here in my shop. If you were sharpening in your van, you may not have the room. If you were sharpening in salon, you may only have a single head machine. So therefore, I like to show both sides of keeping it simple. This is about as simple as it gets. An abrasive disc, a polishing disc. Here's my edge. Blend that, roll down. Blend that, roll down. Blend that, roll down. You guys get the idea. Working my way down. Working my way back up. Blend that, roll up. Well, I'm almost to my edge. There's my edge now, right there. Very lightly on my edge. And then I'm going to roll back away from that edge on my last step. Okay. So now show you guys what I've got. So now I've taken that shear that was a badly beveled edge, and I was able to convex it back to a nice thin edge. Of course, I've got to deburr it on my stone and do my final finishing steps. But that just shows you guys a way to be able to take a shear that was badly beveled, bring it back to a convex. This kind of goes with the same thing of a shear like the Kinchi Scorpions. They're a really thick blade. After a few sharpenings, you get that really thick bevel. I don't want to have to push. I don't want my customer to have to push that thick bevel through the fur. So therefore, I'm able to convex it back, make a thin edge. And then if I was to make this a bevel, I'm going to show you guys what I got here. Hopefully Tanya can zoom in here. You see how I have that nice thin convex edge there. Okay. With a pet groomer, that convex edge is going to be very fragile. So if I want to make that edge a little bit stronger, and now I'm talking about the edge, not the blade. If I want to make that edge stronger, I could simply go back and come to my edge. And just put a small micro bevel on the edge. And then that makes that edge strong. So, of course, I'm going to do my deburr and my finishing work. With a pet grooming shear, I really don't want that edge very polished. So I may finish up with a 1200 or 1500 and leave it at that. There's some other things I can do. With a cosmetology shear, I'm going to finish on my pad or my buffer to make that edge super sharp. But also, in doing that, it's going to be a whole different edge for the fur and the hair. So hopefully, any questions on any of that, you guys, before we move on. And ladies, I guess. Okay.
Hey Dennis, this is Kurt. Are you going to cover anything on I've been encountering some curved shears that are badly beveled,
Okay.
and I've struggled with that one. That's I don't know. Maybe that's another segment.
Yes, a curved shear that's badly beveled. You're going to create, of course, on a curved shear, there's two blades. There's the outside blade and the inside blade. The inside blade is the one on the inside of the curve. The outside blade is basically shaped the same as a straight shear. A straight shear has a curve to it. A straight shear curves this way just slightly. The blade curves this way just slightly. The outside blade curves on a curve shear. The outside blade of the curve curves the same way, curves to the inside. However, it's more drastic. That's the blade that's usually easier. That's usually easier to do because we are working that blade up like this. We raise our hand higher. That's the blade that's usually work. That's easier to do. The hard blade to do is the inside blade. And that's because on the disc, we have that hard edge. So on an inside blade shear, a lot of times I will start to get the shape, Kurt, on a disc that just slightly padded. You can see that just slightly padded there as I push down a little bit. And I'll show you what I got here. So I'm able, on the curve, this is the curve here. And this is the inside of the blade, that's the outside of the blade. So this one, I have to keep my hand lower. And at the end, I can let the tip go down. You guys see what I got there? Common issue, and it's part of the tipping process. Have you got, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed when you see a curved shear, usually the inside blade or the tip will have more problems. You'll have a problem with the inside blade of usually on a curved shear that the tip is going to be skinnier than the other blade. This is just a practice shear, so it doesn't apply.
And that's
That-
what I'm seeing. Exactly what I'm seeing.
Yes, the tip is going to be skinnier. That's because of this right here. Let me get a light. Because you're not staying low. Here's a light right here. Okay. Can you guys see this shadow that I've got? Here we go. Let me do it this way. See the shadow that I've got under the blade there? Okay. If I raise my hand too quick, let me get a hard pad here. If I raise my hand too quick, can you see the light behind the tip? Okay. At this point right now, the way this is, let me put my light over here. Here we go. Is that better, Mama? At this point right now, my tip is grinding away. That work? At this point right now, my tip is grinding away, but I would think maybe that I was looking for a burr back in this area, and I'm not getting a burr here. In the meantime, my tip is grinding away, and then I end up with a rounded tip, a needle tip, banana tip. Very easy to do on the inside blade. So on the inside blade, can you see where my contact point is there, Tanya?
Yes.
Okay. On the inside blade, keep your hand low. This is lower your hand. This is raise your hand. Lower your hand, raise your hand. Keep your hand low. And then once you get past that last curve, then you can raise your hand so the tip only hits, just like that. Hopefully that helps, Kurt. It's just something to practice. Put a light.
It
Yeah.
helps a lot. It's just what I'm finding is like the tips are over beveled.
Yeah, and that a lot of times when they're over beveled like that, it could be a freehand sharpener that is lowering his hand as well.
Okay.
That could be as well. Also, you run into the fact of, and unfortunately, it is what it is. You run into the fact that a curved shear, when they're curving this blade, the blade does not simply bend like this. The blade has twists to it. And the edge part of the blade is going to spin faster than the spine part. It's going to bend faster. So therefore, the blade has twists to it. The good thing is once you figure it out and you're using these as your clamp, opposed to, now I'm not saying everybody start freehanding by no means, as opposed to a clamp. A clamp keeps the same angle on it. So you're going to see that, unfortunately, Kurt, when you're sharpening. Just part of it. Blend it. When you get that bevel, blend it out, make it look the best you can. And you can blend it out by working the backside of the shear down at a bigger angle. Instead of, say, your finish angle is 40, you can work the backside and work that bevel out at a 45 and blend that back to the small bevel that you would get. Very common issue that you see. Hopefully that helps for you, Kurt.
Yes, thank you.
All right. We talked about the bevel. I'm going to put some 220. Look at this shear here. Okay, this one's really easy to see. About a 25-degree bevel. Let's pretend that this shear should be a convex. I'm gonna get a 220 grit paper right here. 220 grit. I'm gonna get a hook and loop right here. I'm gonna show you how fast that you can get rid of that bevel. And then you would simply go 220 maybe 320, 500, 1000, just your grit progression real quick, and still end up with your nice finished surface. Get my light off here. Okay.
Did you use it?
There it is, over here, way over here. Okay. So it's just showing you guys getting rid of an ugly bevel that you can see really well. This is about a 20-degree bevel here. And say that I wanted this convex. So again, I'm going to go to, say, 45. Go to about 48 there. So there's 3 or 4 strokes. And you can see how I got my initial shape in there on 220 grit. Go to my 500 right here, do the same thing. That's my 500. Got my shape going. Gonna change my angle more to like a 40. There's about a 42 with my 1000. There's my 42-degree angle with my 1000. You can see what I've got there. Now I'm almost to my edge. You can see that. Go to my 1200. Which is right. Here's 1200. I've been using a lot of PSA. You don't need PSA. You can get by with hook and loop. Hook and loop does a really, really good job. Hook and loop is a lot more forgiving. Yes. And I'm speaking to several different age groups. I'm sorry, experienced groups of people here. I know some people are only got a year or 2 behind their belts of sharpening. I know other people have been sharpening on this chat right now. I know other people have been sharpening for many years. A new sharpener, you're not going to be able to actually tell the difference between hook and loop or PSA. PSA is going to be a lot more forgiving. This is I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Thank you, Tanya. Tanya's like, you're wrong. Hook and loop is going to be a lot more forgiving. But this is PSA. Just showing you what I'm working with. So now I can move my angle, my finish angle, up to my 40 degrees. Say that I want it here on that. And actually, I'll use my arm now. So you can see in just a matter of minutes how I'm able to take a shear that was badly beveled and bring it back to a nice convex. Just remember, you don't, when you got a badly beveled shear, probably 2 or 3 main things to remember. Go to a rough paper. That was 220. Whatever I did with it, it's right up here. That was 220. That was a brand new 220. 3 or 4 strokes. Boom, it's done. I'm not worried about a burr at this point. Maybe go to your 500. Don't go from 220 to 1200. Maybe go to your 500. Sneak up on the edge a little bit. Then go to your 1000. Get a little bit closer to your edge. Get your finished angle at your 1200 degrees. So just what I did there. And this is just a, I don't know, this is a purple dragon or something shear. Edge. Just going to polish the blade, and then I'm going to finish up with my edge work. If you wanted a really nice edge, you can do everything in hook and loop except for your last step and go to PSA. That's a little bit nicer edge. It achieves basically the same thing as what I've done here, but you've got less heat buildup. Just working towards my edge. Again, it doesn't matter what clamp you're using, whether you're freehand or clamping, the same thing goes into effect. So you can see what I've got there. I just took that shear in a matter of a few steps. I got a little bit up here I got to deal with, but and I got a little bit back here that I would smooth out. But you can see in a matter of a few steps how I was able very quickly to change that big fat ugly bevel into a nice convex. And at that point, at this nice convex, that leaves that very thin edge there that I could refine to leaving it as a very thin edge for convex for hair cutting, or I could put a micro bevel on it and it would be really, really smooth for the pet groomer and not pushing that big bevel back down in there. That's what we call feedback to the customer. Feedback to the customer is where the customer is using that shear like this. Customer's using that shear. And if they got to push hard and pushing that big bevel through the fur, that's a heavy feedback. But if that's a really thin bevel that we've taken and thinned that bevel down, then the feedback is going to be easier for the customer. That's what, whenever you hear somebody talking about feedback, that's what we're talking about. Hopefully that helps you guys out a little bit on badly beveled shears. So any questions on that before we move on?
You got 10 minutes.
I got 10 minutes. Oh my gosh, I like to talk, don't I? Tanya said I got 10 minutes. All right, we'll make this quick. Needle tips, banana tips. I don't know if, let me get a piece of, let me get a different paper here. Here we go, maybe this will work. Okay, see how that tip is real skinny? And that one there is real skinny, like needled. And you guys can also see how this edge comes across like this, and then it kind of turns down this way. And it does it. Tanya's getting some light. There we go. We can see how this edge comes down, it turns. Okay. The tips are really skinny here. Needle. Okay. You see that. Okay. Of course, don't give a shear back ever. Pet grooming, anything with needle tips. They're just, and we see that, don't we? So then what we have to do, because usually with a needle tip, is we have to, it usually ends up with a V. Don't know if you guys can see that V there. Let me move this down here.
There.
See the V. So then what we do is what they do is they have to grind the tips down. Then the tips are really blunted. Okay. A lot of times also, whenever they grind the tips down, because of this big curve right here, this curve right here, a lot of times what happens is this curve overlaps the back spine of the shear, so it gets to be really sharp here. You can see how it's basically overlapping there. So we have to grind that down too. Needle tips, banana tips are caused by not knowing where you're at on the machine. Whether you're using a flat hone or your twice as sharp machine that I have up there, either one, it doesn't matter. If you're using the flat hone, it's because you cannot see your burr or you don't know where you're at on the machine. So if I'm, like I showed you earlier, if I'm sharpening and I'm looking for my burr right here, and I raise my hand, again, raising your hand. If I raise my hand and I'm looking for a burr right here, I'm actually grinding the tip away. And it happens really, really, really fast. On a twice as sharp machine like up there, it would be with the wheel facing this way. It would be where you're turning your hand like this too much, and the tip goes into the wheel really fast. I'll get a blade that looks good and I'll show you how fast it happens. Okay, here's a blade that the curvature of the cutting edge, the radius of the cutting edge, the radius of this cutting edge looks really good. This is how fast it can happen. And this is just 1,000 grit right here. Okay, so we're gonna look for a burr over here, right up here, Mom. Let me move this over here. Okay, you guys see what I got here? See my burr right here? Okay, you can see my burr hopefully right here. Okay. Now I'm chasing the burr out to the tip. You can see it to about right here. Maybe move a little bit closer. Right there. So then if I accidentally raise my hand too high, it's like this, and I'm not paying attention where I'm at. I only did like 2 strokes there. Look how much that changed that tip already. Look at this side. See what I got there? So it's just a matter of playing and knowing where we're at on the tip. So let me show you what I end up with here. Okay, this one is salvageable. Some of them are not. Some of them you just simply have to grind the tip down this way to fix that. This one is salvageable. It's been tipped. That's what I call tipped. And that's where, and it doesn't matter whether it's a bevel or convex, but with a bevel, you can see it easier. That's where this curvature comes this way. And then right here, it turns more this way. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to recreate that shape. And what I want to do is take metal off from here. Let me get this box up here. I want to take metal off from here to about right here and lower this down to catch up with that tip. So I'll show you what I get there. And I'm going to do it fairly fast. That way you guys can see what I end up with here. So I'm going to use my 220. Of course, I would go back and smooth it out. And I'm just going to do it freehand so you guys, we can speed it up. A clamp would do the same thing. Okay, you can see where I went to. I went to right here. And you can see how I remove metal from here. Right, let me get it under my light. There we go. You can see the tip. I haven't removed it. So what I'm going to do is remove this metal here and then sneak up on that tip. Am I worried about a ride line at this point? No, because I'm going to get such a big burr that my ride line is going to be gone. And I've gotten closer, but I still got blue right here on the tip. You guys can see that. If this gets hot, dip it in water, spray it with water, whatever you need to do. You don't want to burn that. Okay, you guys can see the blue on the tip right here still. Right here. Ow. What I'm doing is bringing this blade down so it catches up with that tip. And right. To get the tip down, I'm just raising my hand. And there I've got it. Okay, let me take this apart and I'll show you the shape that I've got now. Let me get rid of that burr. The same blade I was working on. Get rid of that burr. Okay. You guys can see the shape. And that's what we're talking about. There's a lot more to it. We were mainly worried about getting rid of that banana tip. One way to get rid of the banana tip is to just simply grind it back. The other way is to grind the blade down to catch up to it. So you can see how that shear is tipped. And now I have my nice shape back to it. And for a hair cutting shear, like this one, that's going to be a general purpose. You don't want a shear with a lot of roll to it because it's going to push at the tip. So hopefully that helped you guys out there. We'll lay it up here and you guys can see what I've got there. Yeah, lay here. There. You can see that nice roll that I've got to it. This curvature right here is probably going to be like a 5 to a 600 radius, which is a small radius, which a smaller radius means there's going to be more push at the tip. A bigger radius means that the blade is going to be flatter. There'll be less push. If you have less push, then you have more feedback to the customer. So hopefully that was able to help you guys there. If you guys can see that with the tip. Shears that are tipped, shears that are banana tipped is what I call them. Very hard to fix. Unfortunately, a lot of times we guys see that. I know you've seen it. Anybody ever seen a shear that is brown on the tip?
Yes,
You have? Who's that?
this is Pat.
You've seen tips that are brown.
Yeah, they're burned, yeah.
That's because they get real skinny. And the person, Pat, the person that wasn't aware of the tip getting skinny, and then they're brown. And this is what I use for teaching. I'm actually going to use this exact shear blade that I have. This is an example of several things. This is an example of a burnt tip. You can see the brown there. I don't know if you can, but you can see a needle tip. That's something that's something that we see that the groomer should not see. They should not see needle tips. And it just blows my mind. And we see it, Eric sees it, Ward sees it, everybody here. A lot of people see that And it just blows my mind how the sharpener would say, that looks good. Yep, good to go. There you go, buddy. I mean, burnt needle tip. The shear's been tipped, which is banana tip, makes it come like this, and badly beveled. Plus, this shear here is also basically worn out because it's been sharpened so many times. I can see that the old edge was up here. We're getting deep down into our hollow. So burnt banana tips, very hard to fix. You can't always fix it. Remember, we don't always have to be the hero. We don't always have to fix that. A shear that came to me like this one, hopefully you guys can see that okay. A shear that came to me like that one, I would simply leave it assembled. I would get my tag right here, and I would put it in the loop, and I would write, this shear is worn out, not worth repair. Really simple. To fix that, I would have to do a lot of work. And at the same time, it's probably going to be very weak in the cut back here because of the hollow grind, the way the hollow grind works back there. Hopefully that helped you guys out a little bit today. Any questions on anything? You guys want to see anything else?
Dennis, this is Kurt. I do have one question. So I had a pair of shears last week that if I side loaded the shear a little bit, they cut like butter. I mean, they would cut fur, everything perfect. But if I just went a simple push through, they would not cut at all. Well, at about 3/4 of the tip, they wouldn't even cut anymore. Is that a set issue or just a cheap pair of shears? I mean, they were pretty worn.
Are you saying that they wouldn't cut like from here back or here to the tip?
From there to the tip, unless I side loaded them a little bit. So put a little pressure on my thumb to side load them a little, and then they cut fine. I adjusted tension. I did everything.
Yes. I will tell you, and you've got it in your notes. You'll have to go back and look because you train with me. If a curved shear does not cut at the tip, most usually it's a set issue. Most usually. And what we used to do was try to resharpen it, and then it wouldn't cut, and then we'd resharpen it, it wouldn't cut. Most usually it's a set issue. Let me look at this, see if we can make it act up here.
I apologize, Dennis. It's a straight shear.
Oh,
straight.
okay. All right.
I
got
apologize.
you. Yeah. Is it a long straight shear?
Yes, it was an 8-inch.
Okay. A long shear with a skinny blade, you can have, of course, the tip is going to be the weakest part because it's farthest away from the pivot area. So therefore, we may need to add a little bit of set to it. Very common that you may need to add a little set. Look at your set on your check plate. Make sure your set is good. Very common on long skinny shears to fold. What are you checking with, Kurt, on your test medium?
Well, first I tested with these paper towel, and then I went to a rabbit fur, and it was the same on the rabbit fur. I still had to put just a little bit of thumb and very little thumb pressure to get it to cut all the way through clean. I mean,
okay. And a lot of times that could depend also on the manufacturer of the shear, the quality of the shear. Sometimes I see where I may need to put a little bit of twist in the edge as well. And that means
if memory serves me right, there were possibly purple dragons.
yeah,
they were pretty sharpened. I mean,
sure, yeah, and unfortunately, those when you're working in the factory, the fastest way to make money is to do it by hand. The very fastest way to make money when you're making shears in the factory is do it by hand. And unfortunately, when you do it by hand, there can be some inconsistencies. And with something like Purple Dragon, low quality, they're probably going to let more shears go that have set issues. Whereas You get a high quality shear, they're going to be more particular to set issues and fix them. So it happens with those low quality shears.
I have a quick question.
Sure, Patrick.
So if you had a shear that wouldn't cut the last quarter of the way to the tip, and the blade is a cast shear, but you're pretty sure it's a set issue, how do you go about fixing that? Because if you bend it, you know you're going to break it. So how do you deal with that?
First of all, any time that you use a bending block or a hammer on a shear, if you don't get permission and you break that shear, you're going to have to buy them a shear. You know that. So as soon as I determine that it's a set issue, is what you're talking about, Patrick. As soon as I determine that it's a set issue, if I don't want to buy them a new shear, then I will call them and say, hey, your shear's got some issue with the set. I probably can fix it by bending it. However, there is a chance it could break. Then that's where you could go. If it's a cast shear, that's where I would go to a wooden block. If it's a cast shear. If it's a cast shear, you really don't want to use a bending block, go to a wooden block, and that's the most luck I've had is using a wooden block on a cast shear.
And is that where you hammer it on the inside where the J is?
No. I mean, on a cast shear, depending on where the bend is if it was on a straight cast shear, if it was, say, not cutting the last part, you can add some set to it with the hammer in the middle, which is going to bring the tip around, make it cut better. Another thing that you can do on a straight shear is if it's not cutting like up here at the tip, it's just more advanced stuff. What you can do is hone set into it. And that's where I would hone the blade here like this, staying away from the tip. And what that's going to do is reduce this area here and let the tip strike harder. That gets into a little bit more advanced stuff. You got to be careful because you can also make the ride line wide. That's probably a whole nother segment that we would deal with. But that's another way that you can hone set into it. What I call it.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully that helped. Patrick. The hard part is determining whether it's cast or forged right off the bat. Any other questions with anybody? You guys see needle tips every day. Let the customer know that there's an issue if you can, and just work through it the best you can. Don't be afraid to say, hey, this thing has got some issues. I'm going to do the best I can with it. That way you're not liable to it. Those needle tips are definitely an issue that you guys can have with it. Hopefully with the bevels, I was able to, probably the main thing, like I said, with the bevels, don't be afraid to go to a rough paper to get that initial edge and get it knocked down quick. Remember, if you're using your rough paper, don't worry about a burr on your rough paper. When you go to your next smoother papers is when you can get that burr and you create that fine burr with your smooth papers. Hopefully that helped you guys out a little bit today on there. Any other questions? Everybody's good to go? You guys ready for winter? Unless you're from Australia, your summer's coming in. Guys, thanks for listening to Sharp Talk Live. Next week, join us back here. I'll let you know that the date. I'm getting a few other things lined out. Next week, it's going to be fun. We've got 3 different duos that work together, husband and wife teams. We've got another couple that work together. We're going to talk about how they do that every day, working together every day. A couple of them work in the van even. There's a couple from from Colorado. There's a couple from Colorado that have got a very interesting setup that they work both in their salon, in their house, in their shop with the sharpening. And she goes out and picks up the shears and brings them back to the shop every day. Really nice setup. It's worked really well for him. If you guys work with a spouse or a partner, it might be something to listen to. Guys, we'll talk to you next week on Sharp Talk Live. Look forward to it. Stay sharp out there. Have a good day.